Hello everyone, I am future editing Brad, and I needed to come on here and give you a little bit of a trigger warning. I have just edited the video that you're about to watch, and it was a little longer than I had anticipated. We go over all the super thanks for the week, and I get a little rambly. I know some of you enjoy my rambling, but I know others of you probably hate it. But there is a section at the end of this video that I think you will find very helpful and informative, and I do not want you to miss it. I basically show you how I use my sloper patterns or my block patterns, basically the basic pattern that I start with that I trace around to then be able to create the final pattern that I would be able to create a costume with. So I don't want you to miss that section. So if you get tired of my rambling on and you want to shut the video off, but you want to see that part first, I will allow you to scroll ahead and watch that part. I would love it if you watched the whole thing. However, I understand that you may not want to watch me stand for 40 minutes and just kind of talk and answer questions from people without it being like, you know, super tutorial or anything. So the end part I think you will really enjoy, so make sure you do not miss that. With that being said, I think we can get on with our video. However, I think it would be very helpful to remind you at this time, if you haven't already done it, to please like and subscribe to this video. So I will wait while you do that. It's super easy. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Sir, you haven't pushed your button. Why haven't you pushed your button? Just push it. Just right there. Touch it. Thank you. All right. I think we've all... Ma'am, why haven't you touched your button? Click it. Click the button. Super easy. All right. Thank you. All right. Editing Brad gets a little bit crazy, so I thank you for watching along to that little skit that I just did. But I hope you enjoy this video, and you can also leave a comment for me, and I will not hound you on leaving a comment. But once you are ready to leave a comment, please leave a comment, and hope you enjoy the video. All right. Here we go. We can finally get on with the video. Hello everyone, and welcome back. I hope you guys are doing great today. I'm doing pretty good. We've got another super thanks video today. Now I know I did those last week. However, y'all poured in with a lot of support over the last week, and so I thought we would do a video dedicated to those super thanks so that we can kind of go through them. I can give you my thanks off of your thanks, and so let's get to it. Now, if you don't know what a super thanks is, if you're new here, it's basically a way for you to give me a tip to help me out. So you can go below on the share line. There's 3 little dots. You click that and you'll see something that says thanks. Then you can choose the amount that you would like to super thanks me, or, you know, donate to the Brad Griffies Designs YouTube channel to create these videos. And you can leave either a comment there, you know, say thank you so much for this video, or if you're watching a certain video, I love this video because blah, 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 whatever. And then you can also ask a question. And then I have agreed that if you give me a super thanks, I will give you a super thanks by giving you a shout out here on the channel. So every week we'll probably do one of these videos where I can give you a shout out. And if there's enough, we'll do it in a video. Otherwise, I will do a little section within one of my regular videos. However, we had enough this week to do a full video and kind of talk about some things. So if you give me super thanks, I'll give you a super thanks by shouting you out here on the channel so all the world can see your generosity. And then you can also get it maybe a question answered here and on the channel, and then other people can, you know, hear what you were, you know, your inquiring mind was thinking about. I can answer it for you, and then maybe it will give somebody an idea or be helpful to somebody else. So I thank everybody who gives me a super thanks. So let's get into it, right? All right, so the very first one is from Beth Brinston, and she is my friend from Canada who I've met through making these videos. She has been here from day one, it seems, and gives me a comment on every one of the videos that I do here. And then she reached out to me to see if I would be willing to help her out with some of her costumes, some questions that she had while she was currently working on costumes. So we did a FaceTime, and I was able to help her out. So if you're interested in doing a FaceTime with me because you're working on maybe a couple of projects that you have questions about, or you're stuck with something, or you can't figure something out, and you would like to pick my brain, you can just email me at bg@bradgriffies.com, and we can figure out a time that we can sit down and we could chit-chat and go over whatever projects that you have going on. and I can kind of help, maybe figure out what you're stuck on or you may have questions about. So it can be very customized to you. So Beth did that with me, and she loved it, and I think it was very helpful to her to kind of like ease her mind or help her through some things that she was doing that weren't quite clicking with her. But anyway, she has given me a super thanks last week, but then she's given me another one, and she said, no super thanks needed back, but of course I'm going to give you a shout out again. But she was commenting on my video last week, how to create a high neck, and so she said this was on my list of questions. Thank you so much for this. I plan to try this over the weekend. Super excited for your super tutorial. So I thank you, Beth, so much for all of your support. I'm going to crown you queen of my followers this year because you have been so supportive with me starting this whole channel, and giving me support to continue to do it, because like I've said in some other videos, I wasn't sure if this was something I could continue to do or if anybody was watching, if anybody was supporting. And she was definitely one of those ones that like kept saying, this is very helpful to me and thank you so much. And she's given me the super thanks. And so thank you so much, Beth, for your support. So thank you for your super thanks this week again. I really appreciate it. So, by no means am I begging, pleading for you to give me a super thanks, but it does help me out here on the channel when people do give me a super thanks, because I'm trying to do some videos. It's kind of like a community, like that glue video, where like I maybe do tests or, that I have to buy products for the video. And so, these super things kind of help pay for some of that. Like when I bought all that glue for my glue video, I am planning on doing an airbrush paint video very soon. So watch out for that. I think I'm going to try to film it next week. So it will be coming out probably in the next 2 weeks, hopefully, if all goes well with my schedule and my energy. But I want to do a video on airbrush paint, kind of like the glue test, where I'm testing out some different paints to see what I like that works best, because I don't really get a chance to do a lot of experimentation here because I'm always trying to put together costumes, and so I'm just trying to get them done and out, right? So now that the season is kind of slowing down for me before we're about to ramp back up again, I wrote an email today to somebody who's asking me like when they needed a dress, and I put in there that like it's about to start the 26-27 skating season. Like I'm starting to get people, asking for costumes for that, and it just blew my mind. 26-27, like year 2026, 2027. That is just wild that we're that far along. I mean, I've been doing this for years, and I remember used to saying to people like, oh, we're coming up on the 2010 season, and now we're almost to 2030. That is just wild, isn't it? Anyway, I don't know where I was going with that. I get on these little tangents and just start jibber jabbering, and I know a lot of you guys like that, but I get lost sometimes. I think I'm getting old, and my train of thought goes all over the place. It must be ADD as well. But I kind of start talking about something and then I get off on something else and then I can't remember what I've said. So sorry if I repeat myself. But I thank Beth for her super thanks this week. And we're going to have that video with the airbrush coming out soon. And if you would like to give me super thanks, just go below. You can do that. Okay, we went over all that. So let's get into the others, because we haven't had a number of people over the last week who were very generous to reach out and give me a super thanks. And some of them just had comments and some had questions. So the first one is going to be Carmen Baker 2701, and she just said thanks. So I thank you, Carmen, for your support here. Any little bit helps create these videos and keeps me chugging along doing this. So Carmen, thank you so much for that. Thanks. And if you have a question in the future or anything else, please let me know and I will try to answer it. All right, so thank you, Carmen. Okay, we're going to check it off. This is the second time I tried to film this video and I started getting a little rambly, and then I couldn't remember which questions I had already answered, so I'm having to number them and then put a little box next to them. So it's, it's just kind of like the process of like figuring out how to do all this. And so then you film for, I think I have 25 minutes is what I was filming for, and then I realized I am lost in this video. And so hopefully I don't get lost in this video. Hopefully this video will be good. All right. So our third question is coming from Mary Somma, or I think it's a question. Yes, it is a question. Thanks for sharing so many techniques on your channel. Your videos are both instructional and conversational! Exclamation point. Love your men's figure skating costume video. Would you make a video on men's figure skating pants? I'd be interested in your tips. Thank you so much, Mary, for your super thanks. And doing a video on men's pants. I do not feel like I am the most knowledgeable at men's costumes. I do a ton of ladies' costumes. That is 99.9% of my work is doing ladies, and I do a couple of men's a year. Men's is so much harder than ladies, and since I live in Atlanta and I'm not in an area that people can get to me easily without flying, I do the majority of my work through the mail. So I send it back and forth. Now, men's can be a little tougher sometimes. And the reason why it can be tougher is that with ladies, it's a leotard and then the skirt. And then if you know how to set the skirt, that is what makes the dress. Leotards are pretty basic, but knowing how to set the skirt is really the key to a good costume and fit. If you have the skirt off, it's not good. But I know how to set a skirt, and so I feel good. And so I can do, back and forth through the mail, easy peasy. With men's, a lot of their costumes are not super form-fitting. Sometimes they'll have a tight shirt, but the pants will be, more tailored, or they will have a tailored shirt. And so if you do not get the fit on that perfectly, it ends up looking a little dumpy. So it makes it harder for me to do men's costumes unless somebody comes to me. I mean, I will do guys through the mail, and it is a little more simpler if it is a tight shirt. Then, I can kind of fake my way to the top on that. But when it's something very tailored, a lot of times I need to have the guy here in person. And so a lot of people do not want to spend the money to come fly and do a fitting. I have had that happen, but that's just an extra cost that you're paying for when you do that. So since I do not live, in a area where it's easy to get to me, like when I used to live in Delaware. I lived in Delaware for 10 years. So Delaware is in the middle of everywhere. You can get to DC in 2 hours, Baltimore, Philadelphia in 40 minutes, New York in 2 hours, Boston even like 4 hours. So it is easy to, when you're passing through that area, to stop by. So I had a lot of people who did that. However, now that I'm in Atlanta, I really don't see too many people coming into the studio unless they're local to the area or can get here. But we're kind of like an island in the middle of nothing down here in Atlanta. So I do not get a lot of people coming to the studio. So because of that, I do not do a lot of men's costumes. I'm not the most knowledgeable on them. And so doing a pant video, pants are simple. And so I'm sure there's some tips that can be given, but I do not feel like I would be the best person to be making that video. It'd be kind of like giving you my basic tip, and I just do basic pants. There's some people who really tailor pants nicely and do a waistband, and they do a zipper and the hooks and all that. I basically just do an elastic waistband on the pants that come up. And so they're super simple, and then I can make adjustments if needed. The pants need to be taken in or whatnot, but I am, pants are kind of more of a simple thing, and so I don't know if I would be the best to do a video. So I would love to do a video on that, but I don't think I would be the best person for that. So, if you, where was I? Mary, if you wanted to have me do some, a video on more men's stuff, then I, of course, can do that. But I think the pants are kind of a simple thing to do, but I know they can be difficult to get right. And I just don't think I'm the best person for that. So I thank you so much for your super chat. I'm sorry that I can't do a full video on creating men's pants because I just am not as knowledgeable as a girl's skating costume or leotard or whatever you're doing. If you have questions to that, I can give you all the different things, little tips and techniques for that. I can even do a little bit for men's shirting, but the pants, I don't think I'm the person that you should be asking about that. All right, so our fourth question is going to be from, and some of these names, these YouTube names are screen names, and they're mixtures of people's actual names put into one. So this one is Elodie84. and they have said, I've loved your videos so much and they're so helpful. Your invisible zipper tutorial was such a game changer! Exclamation point. I was wondering how you might accommodate woven fabric elements into a skating dress, like a chiffon skirt, question mark, or is stretch chiffon a thing? Thank you for what you're doing, and it's the highlight of my Tuesdays and Fridays. I am so glad I'm a highlight of your Tuesdays and Fridays. This next couple of weeks may be a little bit shifted around, and they may not be Tuesdays and Friday videos. I'm still trying to figure out what you guys like, what you want to see. It seems that you guys like the tutorial aspects, or you love that glue video. So I'm going to try to bring a little more of that stuff. I had started out with doing the start to finish of my costumes, and you love that at the beginning, but I feel like y'all have tired of that a little bit. So I may only do that like twice a month, like every other Friday. I'll do that. But I'm still trying to figure out what you guys like, because I want to make these videos, but they do take some time to put together and film away from my normal work. And so if I'm putting something out and it's getting 100 views, it's kind of like, ugh, I spent that time on doing that and nobody watched it. I know I'm still building. I know I need to probably not concentrate on the views, but it is a little more helpful when I feel like people are watching something. So with that being said, I'm still trying to figure out what you guys like. It seems to be the tutorials, so I'm going to try to continue bringing those tutorials. I know you want to see a little more pattern making skills. It's tough because, I have about 75,000 people who follow me on Instagram, and I have a little over, I think maybe 3,500 here on YouTube, so a lot less. And it seems that people get excited. They got excited about when I did the beading video, or the glue test video, because I think a lot of people, if you're, you may not sew, but you will buy one of my costumes plain and then you'll bead it. A lot of people bead their own thing. So I think a lot more people were interested in that. Whereas when I get into the real, intimate parts of creating a costume, then some people may not, need that or enjoy that, or it's not something that's valuable to them. And so that's maybe why, I feel like I'm very niche here, and why it's been harder to grow an audience is because what I'm doing here is very niche. And so I know it's very helpful to a small bunch of you guys, but, then I see how like my glue video did, and it got, 80 times more, the amount of views than every other video I've gotten. So it's like, I'm trying to figure out, okay, what is going to get views that feels worth it to me? But you guys still like. I know that was a little bit of a ramble. I'm sorry. And I know that we went off topic for this question, but she's asking about using woven fabrics like chiffons, or I like to use a double Georgette. Double Georgette is a little bit of a thicker, opaque kind of chiffon fabric that has a nice flow, and it's easier to work with sometimes than the regular chiffon. It doesn't come in as many colors as I would like to match all of the lycras, so you have to you're very limited on that. However, yes, you can use non-stretch fabrics in skating costumes. Now, I have done costumes where the bodice is in a non-stretch fabric. However, when I do that, I have to have the person here in person so that I can really fit it to their body perfectly. Whereas I'm able to do this back and forth because the majority of my costumes, 99.9% of them, are with stretch fabric all over, and so it's easy to, accommodate for that with the stretch. However, when you have non-stretch things, it can be a little trickier, and you might have to have the person there in person to fit it on the body. But my technique when doing a skirt that is non-stretch, when I use the chiffon or the double Georgette, is that you have to make the pattern a little bit bigger than your normal pattern you would do with a stretch fabric. So that gives it a little bit of extra stretch. And so basically what I do is I take my normal stretchy skirt pattern and I will slash it. And then I can just move it out a little bit and give it like a 1/4 inch here and a 1/4 inch there, and then maybe all around it's an inch or an inch and a half bigger than the normal pattern. And then I will zigzag it onto the panty. So I stretch the panty out, and so then zigzag it on, and then it kind of pulls it back together, so that then you can then seam it in, because I seam my skirts into the bodice and the panty. Then you can seam it in and slightly stretch it. It will make it so that if you're wanting it completely flat, there may be little ripples or wrinkles in it. However, you need to be able to get it over your hips. So especially if you're doing straight across, or something that doesn't V down a lot, then you need that extra stretch to be able to get it over your hips. Otherwise, you're going to have to put a zipper in somehow and then have it go below the skirt line, which you can do, but that's a lot more detailed and harder to do. So yes, you can use chiffon skirts, and the chiffon skirts look beautiful and flow so nicely compared to maybe a mesh, but they do wear out. If you sit on them and sit on like a bench or something that has a pick on it, your skirt's going to start getting picked. It's going to wear out much quicker than, you know, if you're doing a mesh skirt, which is the majority of what I do on a lot of my skirts. However, the flow on that is not as nice, and so a lot of people like to have that chiffon or double georgette skirt. However, you have to be very, very careful with chiffon because it picks very easily, and then you just have runs all over your skirt and it just looks worn out, and you've spent a gazillion dollars on your dress and the skirt is all picked up. So yes, hopefully that's helpful. There is some stretch like chiffon type of fabrics, and I don't think they have as nice of a flow as the actual chiffon or the double georgette, but you know, you can kind of look around and see what you can find. My problem is always finding colors, because like in the lycras, there's, you know, 50 different colors and they have a matching mesh. And so then it's like, okay, you can do all these different colors. With a lot of the chiffons, you're not able to find something that is the perfect match. You maybe have to dye it or it's slightly off, and I want it to be perfect matching. So hopefully this answers your question, Elodie84, and I thank you so much for your support of this channel with that super thanks. And hopefully this answered your question. All right, so now we're going to go on to number 5, and I'm not quite sure if I understand this question, so I'm going to do my best to answer it. But it is from I am kid _A. And it says, I would love to know about patterning. For example, why you don't do a set-in sleeve, or how you pattern your bodices for non-set-in sleeve to be backless or not backless, different style lines, etc. So I think maybe they're asking about my seamless mesh sleeves, because you can do sleeves that are seamed in, and that's normally the typical way when you're doing something with sleeves. There's a seam here, right? However, I create my costumes when they have mesh sleeves to have a seamless look, so that when your arms are up, you're not seeing the seams here, and so it doesn't break up the line and it just looks nice and clean. And a lot of you guys have been asking about a video for that. And I think it's coming very soon, meaning in the next week or two. I'm going to try to film it in the next week. And so then probably next 2 weeks, if all goes well, we can get that video, because a lot of you have been asking about how I do those seamless mesh sleeves and how you get them to fit under the arm so nicely. And so I have a couple little tips and techniques that you have to think about when doing them, because they can be hard when you're using a bait, because there is no pattern for them. You have to create it yourself. So you have to know a little bit about fit and stuff. And I know a lot of people who sew, they're sewing for their daughter or their kid, and they're doing just a couple of costumes a year, and so they don't have a lot of chance to experiment and figure it out. And so they're building 10 costumes to try to get the sleeves to work correctly, and they can never get it right. So hopefully this video that is coming out will be helpful. But I am kid _A, I think was asking that question. It was kind of unclear. And so, but I think they're also asking like how I do it with a backless or not backless, different style lines. Like basically I have my different patterns that I've built over the years that have different style lines. And then if I need something that, I've never had before, then I will build the pattern off of that. But really, when creating these costumes, I know it's easy if you don't have a lot of knowledge to just buy a stock standard pattern and try to adjust from there. But for me, I have my basic pattern, and then I have a lot of knowledge from almost 30 years of creating costumes of how to build things and flat pattern and do all of that. And so I am able to have the knowledge to create some things that are a little more difficult. And so I know when you're not doing a lot, it can be hard to understand, like, how is this all working? But you really have to have a good mind where you can see it in your mind. I kind of see it. I can build a costume of, like, when I'm trying to figure out how it's going to work, because it's like a puzzle, right? You have to fit the pieces in and they have to fit correctly to look good. I can imagine in my brain when I'm building something like how it's going to fit on my own body. Like, okay, if I do this, it should fit here and do this thing or whatever. And so like if you can't imagine that, it is going to be a little more difficult to get the fit correctly. But I can kind of imagine like, I'm doing a costume and something didn't fit right. I'm like, you know what, I think if I adjust this little part, then it's going to fit better here, or it's going to fit tighter to the body here, or, this crevice will be better, or this line will work in the way that I'm wanting it to work if I do this to it. So it can be difficult, but you really have to be able to be a person who can imagine your brain, like seeing it and building it, like almost like a computer, I think, to really be able to do patterning on a higher level. And so I will be doing some patterning videos to try to explain, which hopefully will help and give you a visual. But if you're somebody who's doing a lot of patterns, you really have to be able to visualize in your head. So I don't know if this really answered your question. I am kid_A, but I will be doing a video on the seamless mesh sleeves very soon, because that has been the #1 video asked, and I've been trying not to like give all my secrets away right away because I need to have content. And so if I just gave you everything all at once, then the channel would be done. I wouldn't have anything left to give you, and then we'd be over here. But I want to try to like, try not to give too much away. But I think it's finally time to do those seamless mesh sleeves videos. So watch out for that very soon. All right. So hopefully, I thank you. I am kid_A. I know that might not have answered your question exactly, but I will be doing some more pattern videos because I think some of you are really interested in that, because I haven't done really any pattern videos other than that neck, the neck video that I did last week of how to do a high neck. And so hopefully that helps. All right. So let's see. Where are we now? Okay. So I have gotten 2 super chats from the same person, or super thanks. Sometimes they're called super chats. I think that's in the live. They're called super chats. That's what I want to call them, because I hear some people say, thank you for your super chat. But they are technically, when they're just down on the video, they're super thanks, because it's like a tip. Thank you. So I got 2 super thanks from LieselClassen9935. Now she was very, very generous and gave me 2 separate super thanks. So I thank you so much. So the first one just said thanks. And so when she said thanks, before she gave me the second one, I thought she had also left some other comments and things on some other videos that weren't in a super thanks. So I was going to just, hopefully it's okay for me to say those. But she said on one of them, this is so helpful. I'm just starting out, and so I don't have many patterns yet, but I still have a plan. But having a plan in place to house them was exactly what I needed. This was for my pattern, like how I store my patterns. So check out that video, especially like how you have the different pattern designs categorized by the design elements. IKEA, here I come, because I have everything stored in IKEA units that make it nice and easy to keep everything organized. I'll tell them Brad sent me. Yes, please. I would love to have a little sponsorship with IKEA. Not that I have a lot of followers or viewers, but someday, right? You need some kickback, yes, and love from IKEA too. Kindly sending our business their way. Thank you, Brad, for bringing us all into your workspace. So that was her first comment. That was not part of the super thanks, because she just said, she gave me a very, very, very generous super thanks, but she just said thanks on it. So I wanted to kind of give her a little more of a shout out. And then she also said on, I think this was the leotard for the baton twirler, I like how you've incorporated various stone sizes to give texture and movement. It really does catch the eye. Beautiful artistry, Brad. So thank you for those comments. And yes, I like to use different sizing in my crystals designs when I do the beading, because it does give a nice texture. If you're just doing one size, I mean, sometimes you just do one size and it looks fine. But if you're doing kind of like a design or whatnot, it looks good to kind of mix in some different sizes, because it gives different shapes and sizes and thicknesses going through it. So I think that is what kind of can set apart a costume from something that's basic, where you just have one size. So if you want to really kind of up your ante and your costume game with the beading, I suggest using many different sizes. My favorites are 20, 30, 40, and 48. And then you can mix them all around, or you can swirl them. That costume, I think, had swirls, and they went in from the different sizes, and it just gives a nice texture and rich feel throughout the costume. All right, so Liesl also left me a second super thanks that was also very generous. And so I thank her for the second one. But she had an actual comment on that one, so I'm going to read that out right now. So she says, "Hi Brad, your videos continue to inspire me each and every week. I can tell I am growing in my confidence to design and create a well thought out design. Thanks to you." Well, you're welcome. And then she goes on to say, "I was wondering, what are your current industry standards regarding how much skin is too much to show when thinking about design elements in a figure skating costume? Do judges deduct points from skaters if they feel the costume is too revealing? Does this type of criteria or guidance exist in the figure skating world? Thank you so much, Liesl." Sounds like Diesel. So thank you for those super thanks. I really appreciate it, and you're really going a long way to help out this channel. But yes, there is, a couple of different, rules which have been let up a little bit, and I think they're a little different from U.S. figure skating to the ISU rules. Because I don't feel like, I know that there was a rule with US figure skating where you couldn't have too much nude, and I don't feel like that was in the ISU rules. Now, of course, I should probably know this. However, I don't do too many costumes with a ton of nude on them, but there was a rule, I feel like back in the day, that you couldn't have over 50% of the costume, or like the bodice part of the costume, in nude fabric, meaning like, if it was over, like, you had to make sure the girls were covered. And so you couldn't just have like flowers over the girls and then the rest is all nude. It just kind of, looks a little naked, right? I remember I did a costume around 2009 for a junior level skater. I think she was junior. She might have been senior. I think she was junior. And she qualified for US Nationals. But I had done an Arabian costume for her that basically had like the bra look, and then it had this like little piece that just went kind of like that, but it was very open here in the back. And I think she was competing at either regionals or sectionals, and the judges said, you have to get a new costume. It's too much skin showing. I didn't think it was too much skin showing. I've seen more than that on other people, but you of course want to do what the judges are saying. And sometimes, I will say this, sometimes judges don't know what they're talking about. Sometimes they don't know the rules, whether it's costumes or actual like rules in what they're watching, which is kind of annoying because you would think as a judge they should know those things, but they don't always know those things. And so I've had judges say to me like to one of my skaters like, "Oh, there's too much nude on that costume," and it's one of my like ready-made costumes that just has a little bit on the back that I have sold 200 of to people and never gotten a comment from anybody until the 200th one comes along and they're like, the nude back is too much, that's against the rules. And I have to say to the parent, it's not against the rules. It is fine. They don't know what they're talking about. The rule says this, da, 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 this, at least in US figure skating, it's not over 50% of the bodice. So just keep that in mind. Sometimes the judges don't know. Of course, they're the one judging you, and so they can take off the points if they want to. And I've kind of find that like, if a judge, any judged anything, if they like you, they're gonna like you. If they don't like you, they're not gonna like you. So they're gonna find any sort of way to like go anyway. Anyway, I had that skater who they felt like it was too much nude showing, and so we fixed the costume and did something else. However, that same year, Ashley Wagner came out, and I'm not gonna put a video in here, but you can look her up. It was around 2009. She came out in some costume. This is when she was very, very new. But it looked naked. The whole thing looked naked. Like it was a very nude color, and it looked naked, and it had like little, I think she was also skating to Arabian, but it had some like little ruffles that went around it, but it was much more naked than my skater was. And she's the top, one of the top skaters in the country. And she was wearing that costume and didn't seem to be getting any feedback unless she did, and she didn't want to change it. Because I know sometimes that happens, but her costume was very, very naked that year, and nude looking. And I've even seen costumes like that are nude looking where they have airbrush that fade up into a nude and like the bust looks totally naked. So it's kind of like, you know, you don't know, like there's these rules, but then some people don't use them and seem to wear the costume and it's fine, while other people get picked out. It's not fine. So I just say, like, try to not do that. And I don't really do too much crazy nude on my costumes. I used to do bigger open backs back in the day. Now I don't. But yeah, there are some rules. Like, men used to not be able to wear, I think, tights. I think maybe they can now. They used to have sleeves, and couldn't have like maybe a low V. I think that is now they don't have to have sleeves on their costumes. I think something's changed. I know there was a Katarina Witt rule where she came out in a leotard and she was, you know, it was basically her legs, and they told her she needed to get skirt on her, and so then they made a rule that you had to have a skirt. There was the Debbie Thomas thing where she came out in her unitard, which I thought looked nice, but then they banned that to say, like, you can't wear unitards and you have to have a skirt on your dress. But then they changed that a few years back where you can now wear unitards. So the rules do change back and forth, but the whole nude thing is kind of like, I don't quite understand it, because I don't think I've seen that nude rule in ISU rules, but it's more of a US figure skating thing. I don't know. I know that was a deep ramble, but, you know, I will say sometimes judges don't know what they're talking about. Like, I've seen judges like judging something and they don't understand, like a test. They don't understand they didn't realize what they were looking for. It's like, you're judging this thing. You should know what you're looking for. Like, so just because somebody's a judge doesn't mean they're actually good. I have seen that many times over the years, that there's people who do not know what they're talking about and they are judging at a very high level. That's just a little tea from me to you. All right. So I know that was a ramble, and hopefully that answers your question, Liesl, like Diesel. And thank you so much for these wonderful super thanks. I thank you so much, and I really appreciate it. And it's really going to go a long way to helping me create videos here at Brad Griffies Designs for my YouTube channel. All right, we've got one last question, and I think I'm going to have to do a demonstration. And it is from AronHarvey5195. And he says, thanks, love the pattern section. This is off of that video that I did last week on the pattern. So check that video out if you haven't seen it. It just basically shows how I store all my patterns and keep them organized and everything. And so kind of give you an idea if you need an idea for how to store your patterns. But he says, thanks, love the pattern section. I enjoy drafting patterns and would love to see how you draft your main blocks that you use to adapt for each client. All right, so I'm going to bring you over here to the table and we can kind of go over that, and I can kind of show you my basic patterns. Actually, you know what? I'll set you up here so you can see my face, and I will show you a couple of different base patterns, and then then I can put you overhead and show you how we look at the patterns and how I can adjust them, if that makes sense. All right, so let me get you set up, and I'm over here now. All right, now I've got you flipped around to this side. Now, Aaron had asked about drafting my main blocks. Now, you can call them blocks, you can call them slopers. It's basically just what you start with before creating a costume. Because, like, yes, you could start from scratch and do all the lines and all that kind of stuff. It just takes a little longer. So a lot of times it's better to have blocks or slopers that are within the size that you're going to be doing. You can trace it out, and then you can make adjustments from there. So what I do is I have many different kind of starting points within each of my sizes, and so I just choose what I like best. But when I started, I had my main slopers look like this, and so this was from, and this says, I think the last time I changed this sloper was from 2011, 9/26/11, so that's like 14 years ago. So these were what I always started every costume with, something similar to this. And I had gotten patterns originally from a company called Specialty Sportswear. So shout out to Charlie. She is so sweet and has always been so kind to me. But I got those patterns in probably 97 or so when I was starting out, and started with those and then would adjust to what I needed. And so that's what I always suggest, is find a basic leotard pattern that you like, and then you just adjust from there. And so that's what I did. And then it kind of over the years, I would just adjust and change things as I was going to what I needed. And so it had turned into this. And so then I had those. And then when I started my line, I started a line of, you know, costumes in 2008, 9. And so I was trying to make sure, because before that I was just doing custom work. So everything would kind of be slightly different. And so when I first started, I wanted to make sure things were consistent across. And maybe even when I first started, they weren't consistent. But at some point within the first couple of years, I was like, okay, I got to make these consistent so that everything fits correct and like all the sweethearts look the same, and that, you know, everything kind of went across the whole line would be the same, but just changes of sleeves or not sleeves, high neck, not high neck, or scoop back or whatever. And so I started with these, and then I built them into my seamless mesh sleeves, which is what this is. This is the front and the back. They kind of butt up like this. And so when I got this, I decided to then have this be my sloper of the main base, because it is slightly different. As you can see, it is slightly different than like how it fits. I don't know if you can see that, but it's, you know, it goes down a little bit and goes a little bit out there. And so I decided to build my whole line off of the seamless mesh sleeves. Even if they didn't have sleeves, I built it off of that and then made adjustments so that everything could be as consistent as possible throughout my line. And so that is what I've done. So then I built these, and I keep them hung up. I don't know if you watched my pattern video, you'll see that I have these little hooks that then have a little bar that go through, and so I can just hang them up. So go check out that video, like I said. But you know, there's different base starts. So like this is a scooped neck with the hooks on the shoulder. This is a scooped back where you just crawl into it and there's no hooks. This is the high neck one, and then I have all different sleeved versions as well. And so I basically, everything started off of this sloper or block, and then turns into the base that I need. And then I take these bases and then adjust them for whatever I'm doing. So to be consistent, I start off this one. So basically nothing really is off of these original or originally original patterns. I know they changed over the years from when I started, but that's basically what you have to do is when you're kind of working throughout the years, you have your main sloper pieces, and then you can just adjust as you see, like, you know what, this is not fitting correctly here. Especially like with my line of dresses, I get to see them on so many different body types that I start making adjustments to be like, okay, it's fitting good on this body, but it's not fitting good on this body. And I think if I do this little adjustment, it will still fit good on this body, but it will fit better on this body. And so that is, you know, what I do. And then basically what I will do is I will trace everything out. I have my paper here now. Like I said, somebody asked me about what paper I'm using for my patterns. I have hard patterns. So this is cardstock, so it's thicker, but I can't pen into this, but it helps keep it easy to trace when I'm putting it onto a piece of paper, regular piece of paper. But then it also doesn't wear out as fast. So when I'm going to do a pen, I have paper on a roll like this, and it's basically 20-pound regular copy paper, but it my family has a printing company that is also in this building, so they have access to a lot of paper, and so I'm able to get all sorts of different things. So this is what I found was best, because I can see through this paper when tracing. You can see behind it when you put something behind it, and you can trace onto it. But basically what I'll do is I will just take one of these slopers when I'm ready to start. I'll put it on the fold, and then trace everything out. And then if I have somebody that has a bust line that is, say, bigger, like I know this is my bust line line here, and this is my waist line, and then there's a hip line that's in the panty, I can basically I can just go out and I can make it wider, or I can make it slimmer. Sometimes if somebody has a really big bust, you want to make sure that you pull the pattern back, so you make those adjustments. And so it's really just kind of, and I've always done flat patterning. Some people do draping. I've always done flat patterning. So I have the basic patterns. I just feel like that's the cleanest for me, and I kind of have figured it out. But you can just make your adjustments that way, so that you find your line. And like, say if somebody is good with this, but they need a longer bodice or a shorter bodice, you can just take the line. If you take the line of the waist here, you can just, if they need an inch or 2 inches longer, but an inch longer overall, you can just go like that, and then you can just move the skirt line down. And then you just kind of adjust there, you draw on there. And so these are some videos that I will do in the future to go a little more detailed, but just to kind of show you how I use these blocks or slopers. That's what I do. And then you can just make your, your little adjustments if you're doing custom and you need to do it. Now, a lot of times I don't adjust the pattern because I have so many girls that are that fit right within my standard sizing. And like I said, I've been using these patterns for a while. So I've really kind of made them so that they fit a wide variety of bodies. And so they don't need adjustments or maybe small adjustments. Normally it's with the length where I either need to just shorten the panty or lengthen the panty just a little bit, but everything else fits really well. I mean, I've done my ready-made line or made-to-order line, and they've gotten the costume, and the coach said, this is the best fitting costume they've ever had. It looks like it's custom made to them. And it wasn't. It was just my standard, sizing that I figured out how to make it look the best on the most wide variety of bodies, if that makes sense. So it just takes time, and it takes a lot of knowledge and experience. And so that's what that's why my costumes are maybe a little more expensive than other people's, is because I have years and years of experience and know how to fit a body correctly, and just my knowledge of how to do certain things. And so, that I think, makes it so that I can charge a little more because I'm giving you something that is a better product, I think, in the end. And it's not just, something that kind of doesn't fit great. But I know a lot of y'all who are just starting out, you can't quite figure out the fit. And so hopefully these videos help you out. And then just know, like, you just kind of work over time and you kind of make little adjustments on your blocks. And then you get them to a certain point, like I have, where I haven't really changed them. I probably have not changed them since 2011, since I did this. So I've just kind of figured out what worked best on the most wide variety of bodies. But to do that, you have to deal with a lot of people. So I've dealt with a lot of people over the years, and you figured out. But you'll get people, here and there where they just don't fit in the standard sizing, and you have to do a custom pattern. And so when you do that, you start with these blocks and then you adjust. Like, I remember I had a girl who had really bad scoliosis, and so she looked normal in the dress, but when she would put on a stock dress, it just did not fit correctly, especially in the back. And so we realized we have to take off 2 inches, bring the skirt line up 2 inches, which you would think would look like the skirt line is starting from here, but when she put it on, it fit her perfectly. So you will have to make adjustments, but you just use your blocks and what you found that you like and adjusted over the years as a starting point, and then you go from there. Hopefully that answers your question. I know that didn't go into deep detail of any patterning, but there will be more videos coming because I've been getting a lot of questions of that asked, that you guys want to see more patterning, and so I'm going to be giving it to you. And I know that you want to see those seamless mesh sleeves, which I'm going to do in the next week. This video feels like it's going to be a long ramble. I don't even know. I feel like when I did a little cut to here to there, it was 75 minutes already. So hopefully you guys are still watching, but I thank you for coming. I thank you for all of these super thanks this week. I really appreciate it. And then if you will, want to do it in the future, I will give you a shout out, whether it's just shouting out your comment to me, or if you have a question that you want to know about, I will put it in a video, whether it's its own video, if I feel like, this is something that I think can warrant its own video, or I can put it in a video like this where I show you real quickly something and maybe doesn't have the time for a whole video, but can do it. So like I said, you can go below, click the 3 dots on the share line, and you will see thanks. You just click that, and then you can give me a little tip, whether it's small or big. I will take anything. So thank you so much, and if you could please like, subscribe, and comment on this video, you know that helps. Check out my websites, bradgriffies.co, and my stock website, bradgstock.com. You can check out my Amazon store below as well that has all the goodies like, you know, snips and what is the thing called? A ruler, and scissors, and airbrush, and beading tools. That will be in a link below at my Amazon store. And then please share this video with anybody that you think might find it helpful, whether it's in a friend of yours or whether it's in a Facebook group or an internet group that has to do with costume making or fabrics or whatever. So thank you all for your support. And I think my next video, just to give a little preview, is going to be a preview on my Tuffy cutter. It's going to be a product review, which this cutter, a lot of people ask me about it. It's kind of expensive, but it saves my hands. Like my old hands, I don't think could use regular scissors to cut out costumes anymore, especially because I'm doing all the cutting myself again. And it really kills my tendons going down my arm. And so this thing makes it much quicker, but then also saves your hands. So I'm going to do a product review on this and show you how I use it. Oh, I can cut many different layers of fabric. So that will be coming out in the next couple of days, or maybe even tomorrow. I'm not sure. But I'm kind of in a little bit of a, like, just doing videos whenever, and I'm not on a schedule on my Tuesday and Friday schedule right now. So videos will come out when they come out. And then hopefully we'll get back to a schedule where we can be Tuesdays and Fridays or whatever I find works the best. Anyway, thank you so much for coming and for supporting the channel, to everybody who gave me a super thanks. And I will see you in the next video, when should be a preview on my Tuffy rotary electrical cutter that saves my hands. All right, see you later. Bye.